And I feel like the Browns are in a difficult little situation. The energy is a little off right now. And what I mean by it is me being in on ground zero, on the ground level here with the Cleveland Browns in the city of Cleveland. I do radio. I do television. I do the Ultimate Browns. I do UCSS. I do the Bleacher Report. I got my own show, The Barbershop, on YouTube. I do Cleveland.com every week. I'm on with Quincy a lot. So, when I'm doing content, I get the opportunity to touch base with a lot of different people and a lot of different opinions in the Cleveland Browns community. And so for me right now, it just seems like the energy is a little bit off. And when I say off energy, it's just like people, the fans are kind of checked out. And I would be too. You're 2-7. But it's a different type of checked out. It's a little indifferent. And let me explain it. Because the Browns, there's a couple of ways that we always look at in the media in general, how we look at the way people digest the content, right? And the algorithm and analytics. Usually what you want to do is when you want to have people with a lot of interest, you either want to be super, super, super bad or really, 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 really good. So that means not in the middle era, right? And so right now, a lot of people can say the Browns are super bad, right? But here's the problem. So are a lot of other teams. And so when a lot of other teams are also super bad, those teams have a great opportunity to get high draft picks. So you're in a place this year where there's other teams that are just as bad as you, yet and still, they also have other pieces and parts that you may say, wow, I might like their roster a little better. What also is coupled with that is people that aren't really sold on a number one guy. Like usually in the quarterback class, there's 2 or 3 quarterbacks that you want, or just guys that you're like, wow, consensus, he's the number one pick. Let's boom, we taking him. Usually there's a defensive end that somebody, or defensive lineman that people take high, or there's a quarterback. Traditionally, receivers and running backs and linebackers, corners, those people aren't seen as those generational type pieces and parts, and you don't take those guys with the number one pick. So right now, there isn't one quarterback that you would say, Cam Ward, they lost last week to Georgia Tech. Shedeur Sanders' stock is rising a little bit, but he's not seen as a once-in-a-generation type player, but people like him. He's not polarizing. There's people that like him and some people that feel like, all right, I like better prospects like Arch Manning in another year or so. So because there isn't that level of excitement around one guy in college, and then the Browns really don't have a readily available answer at quarterback. The money is a difficult conversation with Deshaun Watson. You got a stopgap kind of quarterback with Jameis Winston. You have a small sample size, played really great against the Ravens, not so great, actually terrible against the Chargers. And you got a young quarterback at DTR with a very small sample size who does some good things. We like his upside, but he's hurt a lot. He's fragile. He turns the football over. You throw on top of that, people feel like, the quarterback that we had in Deshaun Watson, they were forcing that on the fan base. They didn't like that so much. You had a booing situation. Then you have this whole fight back and forth with the stadium, and people are suing to keep the Browns here. Then they don't want to go to Brook Park. And here on the ground level, it just feels like people is just over it. It just feels like there isn't a level of excitement around them. You got people coming out, the Jed Wills thing. You had, you've had Zadarius Smith saying he was excited to get out of town. Juan Thornhill throwing like subliminal shots. Then you have the bye week. And you know what's funny? People is just out doing more. People is just out like people saying for the first time, I done caught up with my neighbors. I done did stuff with my kids. I done did some yard work. The Cavs are good. The Guardians went to the ALCS. For the first time in a long time, man, that energy level for the Browns during the season is just not there. And it would even be more encouraging if it was anger. It's not even anger. It's like, whatever y'all doing. Like, I see dudes putting up Brown clips. Them clips ain't doing no numbers. Heck, I see it all the time. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put this out. People is rather than investing in that, they're investing in other things to do with their time. They're investing in other things that don't involve arguing back and forth about the Cleveland Browns. Because we're starting to see other teams that are doing their thing. We're blessed to have two other teams in Cleveland that are very good, that have two totally different makeups. The teams have no problem. There's no drama off the court. The teams like each other. And when you're doing Browns content, and I'm just keep it real about even with me, sometimes you just like, look, I'm going to do the Browns content because, I am passionate about the Browns and it's part of what I do. But there are times where I come on and I don't want to talk about the Cleveland Browns because there ain't really nothing positive to talk about. Could that change? Sure, it could. But, I think this year is a really funny thing, man, because, I've been doing this type of content for coming up on 12, 13 years, and especially on the internet. And at least the Browns during dark times had a level of hope, right? Like there was a level of hope that maybe if you got the GM, maybe if you got the coach right or the quarterback right, you were in the right area where you can kind of right this ship. But right now, I just feel like people are in between not knowing if this the GM, the coach, who's going to be the quarterback. Are you drafting a quarterback high? Will you have enough high enough pick? What's up with the cap situation? Do you like any of these young kids? Do you want to go with DTR? It's just a bunch of stuff. It is nothing concrete right now with the Browns, and I think it's going to take the rest of the season to evaluate most of it to figure out where the heck they want to go. Because right now it's a muddy situation.